Alright. Ah, ano ba? Good evening na ba? Kasi 6 o'clock na. Good evening. Um, Good afternoon na rin to be safe. No? So good afternoon, good evening everyone. I'm Mike Albinar. So this afternoon I'll be talking about data literacy without borders. Um, Bridging the digital divide through community and open access. So medyo big words yung title, but I hope by the end of this talk you have a better appreciation of the things that we are doing in DP. No? So just if you have questions, just type in the chat. If at saka let me know if hindi clear no what I'm when I talk. Sige. So let's start. Uh, Data literacy. No? So what is the definition of data literacy? No? So si DEP, it's really very big on data literacy kasi most of what we are doing there is really learning, no? Focus around learning, trying to understand tech, digital, and data skills. And all in all, we encapsulate it into a term called data literacy. So on the right side, where's my laser pointer? On the right side, this is the definition no, of from Wikipedia. Data literacy is the ability to read, no, understand, create, and communicate data as information. No? So if you think about it, that's really basic. No? Yan yung parang things na everyone day to day should have basic skills on. No? And but syempre, ang question dyan is ah, lahat ba meron and lahat ba has enough or adequate level enough of data literacy, especially in our country. No? So the ability to organize data, the ability to analyze data, the ability to communicate data, especially in a world of, 'di ba? AI ngayon, no? AI is the parang keyword. Um, and there's a lot of kumbaga, misinformation, no? Hallucination, etc. that's happening. And we want to make sure that everyone has the basic skills, no? In terms of information. So, pero how do we know that we're actually getting there, no? As a country, no? As a country. So I'll walk you through some statistics, no? So this one, mga recent to. Well, I tried to look for more recent data. So this is a report from Data Portal, Data Reportal, a report on digital uh, adoption no, in 2025 in the Philippines. So there's a report na we're actually at 83%, sabi natin 84% adoption. Ano ibig sabihin yun? When it comes to the internet, ano ibig sabihin nun? At any given time, there were around almost 100 million Filipinos at the start of 2025 that were able to use the internet. Grabe ang laki ng jump. I think just a few years ago nasa 60 lang tayo no. So we've made we made huge progress in the past few years. Past 10 years sabihin na natin. Um so that's good, 'di ba? That's good. Bakit? Kasi when you have access to the internet, you are able to have exposure to a lot of things, a lot of information that's largely free. Google services are free, Wikipedia services are free, ChatGPT to a certain extent is free, YouTube is free, so ang raming access, uh, you have a lot of opportunity and access open to you, no, na you can take advantage of if you have access to the internet, no? Pero yun ba talaga? Sige, that's what we want to go through. So, let's try to, nitpick no, and open up this topic. So, first, I'll walk you through a story. No? So, Elena is a resident of Donsol. No? Donsol is a municipality in Sorsogon, the southernmost province in Luzon. No? Although near a tourist spot, Elena's barangay lacks internet connection. No? So obviously, hindi lahat ng mga probinsya, lugar sa Pilipinas would have internet. She pays around 40 pesos to travel between her home and a computer shop at Poblacion, which is yung parang town center nila. Kung saan she pays 25 pesos an hour for internet access. So in total, 1 hour of internet access costs her 65 pesos a day or almost 2,000 a month, no? Syempre yung ganyang amount, well, wala akong benchmark, no? But I assume that's big, no? For provincial, costs. So, obviously, Elena is not her real name. And this was a survey done in 2019. So, ano na to, 6 years old na to. So, I'm hoping, double quotes, nagbago na yung situation for her, no? But this is, I would say this is still largely true for a lot of Filipinos today. So the survey was done on GIDAS. GIDA is a classification, no, geographically isolated and disadvantaged um, people, no, or barangay in the Philippines, no? So ano sila? They refer to communities with marginalized population, physically and socio-economically separated from mainstream society. Obviously, yung mga mainstream areas yan. Thank you, JP. Diyan ka pala. Yun. So I mean, obviously, yung mga mainstream society, ito yung mga nasa city, 'di ba? Yung mga talagang kompleto yung access, not just the internet, no? May internet ka nga, pero maybe wala kang kuryente, 'di ba? Wala kang infrastructure. In this case, in her case, she has to go travel pa just to have access to internet, no? The point is, hindi lahat ng Pinoy would have that privilege. It is still largely a privilege, no? So, so let's look at some numbers, no? So this was a census that was done in 2020 on broadband internet penetration by connectivity types and provinces. So on the left side are yung mga locations, no? So there's Luzon, Visayas, and then Mindanao. And then on the x-axis, no, is yung mga types of connectivity. And then yung isa pang axis dito, no, isa pang y-axis dito is yung population, no? So may breakdown in population. So makikita niyo yung largest na population is in NCR because obviously we're largely largely ano tawag dito, parang dense, no? Dense yung population sa NCR. Pero ano yung without really looking at the numbers, just looking at the visualization, makikita niyo yung disparity that's happening, no? The farther you go from NCR, mas malaki yung gap in terms of no access, no, to the internet. Merong konting na bridge na gap ng mobile, no, but it's largely the same, parang the same distribution, no, the farther you go. So anong ibig sabihin nito? Even though there is 80 something plus 84% no of Filipinos that have access to the internet, hindi siya parang well distributed, no? So it depends kung nasaan ka. Siyempre yung access sa internet, it depends pa nga kung stable, mabilis, di ba? Wala pa tayo dun sa topic na yun, just access lang to the internet. Pwedeng 3G lang yan, no? Baka text lang yung kaya mong no? So that's one. So there is a divide, no, that's happening between urban and rural, no? So yung mga urban, yan yung mga mayroong strong numbers, and then the rest medyo pabaksak yung Okay, another divide, another view, no, another view of the divide is yung how it is expanding, no? So on the left side, tingnan tayo on the left side. Sorry, ano pa lang, yung source nito is World Bank. So if you want to check it out for yourself, no? And then yung source ng analysis World Bank, and then yung source ng data is PSA. No, so that's coming from our own sources. Okay, the other chart that I want to show is yung expansion of the divide. So these are numbers from 2019 to 2022. Essentially, ang sinasabi lang nito, yung nasa left na chart, is as time goes on, mas yung mga households ng top X riches mas gumaganda yung experience nila sa internet, no? And then yung poorest na households, largely gumalaw naman, but it's not as much in terms of improvement. So in terms of yung access. So that's for the left side. The right side is mga ano naman to, no? Kasi kanina I think I mentioned, I only focus on the internet. But the reality is, you need a lot more. You need access to personal computer or maybe a cell phone. And then more than that, electricity, no? Pero if you think about it, etong mga to, these are like parang higher order, parang privileges. Uh, di ba? May iba dito, baka wala pang access sa mga mas basic pa, no? Na amenities, no? So what more, no? Baka hindi nila, wala silang oras to think about learning and education because mas focus sila on just surviving, no? But you know, just focusing on this, may kita nyo, may divide pa rin, no? So um yung red, there's still a lot more, no, in terms of percentage household ownership in 2022. Okay, anong effect nun? Anong effect nun? This is another survey. Galing pa rin siya sa same na analysis ng World Bank, coming from the UN SDG indicator. So ito, they tried comparing naman yung performance ng, I think, youth and mga young adults in terms of ICT skills. So I tried to look at the numbers, no, pero parang on average, at least dun sa mga na-interview nila and na uh, yeah, na-interview nila ng mga ano, ng mga youth and adults. Ito, yung pula yung pula yung Pilipinas, no? Yung mga Pinoy. So only yung some of their findings, syempre, obviously yung result nito is that there's a gap in terms of digital skills, no? Kasi less exposed ang mga batang Pinoy, hindi sila nagkakaroon ng parang typical day-to-day access sa ganitong klaseng information, ganitong klaseng services, no, mga digital tools and apps, etc. So ang impact nun is hindi sila ganun kasanay, no, in terms of learning those skills na for us, majority ng nasa Manila, etc., consider it basic, no? So, for example, only 2% of Filipino adults can use basic Excel formulas, no? 6% can know and use copy-paste, di ba? Siyempre, copy-paste, napaka-meme niyan, no? Pero to other people, hindi nila alam, doesn't exist for them. Or just the ability of just knowing how to attach a file to an email, no, being able to communicate using technology. So mababa yung average natin compared to other countries, no? So that's an example of an impact. Okay, so that's the problem, no? Bakit yan yung parang key framing na I'm focusing on because yun yung theme natin, no, for the ICT month, no? So walang iwanan sa digital bayanihan, but the reality is merong naiiwan, no? So how do we, you know, consider them, find ways to help them catch up, no? So building a digitally empowered Philippines is a shared responsibility, no? That's something na I would like to highlight. Hindi lang siya problema ng gobyerno or ng mga NGOs or ng mga CSR na mga companies. It's everyone, no? Every Filipino, regardless of status, location, ability, must have the opportunity to thrive in the digital age, no? So it's a really good vision. And I would say it's really difficult and challenging and hard vision. But at the end of the day, syempre, you want Filipinos to succeed dahil Pinoy tayo, right? Um, so yung objectives ng ICT month is to promote, no, promote and drive and advocate itong mga different mga different pillars. Pero sa case of Data Engineering Pilipinas, itong number 2 yung yung parang pinaka nagre-resonate sa community, no, ng DEP. Being inclusive for all, no, inclusive tech for all. Bring digital opportunities closer to every Filipino, especially those in remote, underserved areas, by expanding accessibility to connectivity, skills, and services. I mean, obviously, hindi naman kami, ano tawag dito, hindi naman kami telco, no, to be able to establish that. Pero, it doesn't mean wala tayong magagawa, no? So that's what I'm going to be talking about sa next few slides, no? So ito 'yon. Mike, paano tayo makakatulong talaga, no? So how can communities help in the digital divide? So let's try to paint a picture, no? Kanina sinabi ko na 80-something% ng Pinoy merong access sa internet, pero syempre, 'di ba? Parang itong 80% hindi natin alam yung quality niyan. Pero let's assume it's good quality. Meron pa rin tayong 18 million Filipinos with no internet access. 'Di ba? So, I hope slowly, mawawala 'yan, mababawasan 'yan. Pero if you think about it, hindi lang 'yon yung gap. Hindi lang 'yon yung gap. Let's look at the other gaps. Stable electricity, access to the internet, quality education and guidance, time, connections, software and hardware, 'di ba? Ano yung hindi nila makukuha if wala silang itong mga 'to? Siyempre mga obvious lang, just having no internet access, 'di ba? Through the internet, you're able to network, 'di ba? Find people that will mentor you, have access to resources like YouTube, 'di ba? Wikipedia, where there are a lot of learning content na makakapag-build ka ng digital skills. And you are able to get access to learning. Ang rami-rami mga free learning na nasa internet na Pinoys don't have access to. And because of that, hindi sila nakakakuha ng right career opportunities. So parang setup for failure, no? Parang nakakalungkot. Um, Yun. So yun yung parang wow, sana we can do something about it, no? And I'm sure government, NGOs, etc., and companies and telcos are trying to do something about it. Pero tayo as a community, again, as a community, what can we do, 'di ba? Okay. So yan ang pinaka-theme no, sa next few slides. So DEP as a community, yung pangarap natin is to be able to turn barriers into bridges, no? So very simple lang ang formula ng DEP. It's community plus open resources and volunteerism. Kasi at the end of the day, ang DEP sa community, wala naman tayong pera, wala naman tayong, 'di ba, budget, etc. But we have puso, no? Marami tayong mga tao na very passionate and inspired, 'di ba? They want to really help out. Marami rin tayong yung internet is very rich with resources, no? Open, license, free, etc. Ang rami niyan, we don't need to go through lahat sa mga paid. If we filter them out, ang rami pa ring really legit, no, na material na we can take and use as more learning material. Ngayon, meron tayong mga 18 million Filipinos na hindi matutulungan kasi obviously wala silang internet access. So tayong magagawa sa kanila. Pero yung 80 na have access but don't have, the money to invest in education, to find a mentor, to find a friend that will teach them, they don't know how to start. Those are super easy, low-hanging fruit na anyone in the community can do, 'di ba? So, 'yan ang ano natin, 'yan ang pinaka-goal. If there's something na you can take out of this talk, yun na 'yon. Itong formula na 'to. Kasi ang equality niyan, ang final output niyan is democratization. We are able to parang really open up education. Well, not really full education, no, but at least digital uh data literacy for those na we are able to find. So kanina 'di ba 18 million walang access sa DEP 35,000 nga lang 'di ba? So kahit makakuha lang tayo ng ilan doon na matutulungan natin to have a better career path, okay na tayo, solve na, 'di ba? So 'yun ang pinaka-formula natin. So in the next few slides, I'll just talk about ano yung mga programs ng DEP that actually help out in this area. Okay. So DEP is an inclusive tech and data, very highlight is it's a grassroots community. So malaki ang emphasis natin sa people. And yung pinaka-anchor natin is mga open source values, meaning we focus on open source, open license, free and sharing, no? It doesn't mean na ayaw natin ng mga paid. So for example, makikita nyo may mga nag-share pa rin ng mga paid programs sa group and we actually promote them. That's okay, no? Kasi eventually naman magkakapera kayo and you want to invest in better education and high quality support, and that's fine. no? Pero if you think about it, babalik lang ako dun sa kanina, which is hindi naman lahat would have those types of privilege at the start, no? So that's where we want to focus on. So we were founded in July of 2023. And we are part of the Pi Data group. So Pi Data, if you Google them, largely the same yung goals. It's looking at open source technology, and digital and AI, etc. No? We're also a partner of DataCamp, no? So dito nanggagaling some of the free education that we have. And then currently we stand at around 35,000 members. Yung pinaka core is open access, collaborative learning, community, and partner driven. Okay. So how do we do it? No, yung pinaka idea namin is to look at a maker mindset. We don't really focus too much on kunyari mag-ipon kayo ng certification, or mag-ipon kayo ng mga attendance, ganyan, certificates. Ang pinaka pinopromote is doing. So once you learn something, practice mo na kagad. Kahit magkalat ka, okay lang. Kasi nasa loob ka naman ng community, di ba? So aral ka paano mag-program, gawa ka kagad ng project, and then share it. Meron kang bago natutunan, present mo into our forum, and then you get to practice how to present, how to do interviews, etc. So, kagad, laban kagad. Yan ang natin, goal. Yung pinaka-idea is to focus on yung minimum viable product. Madalas yung mga tao, they like to create super highfalutin projects na never natatapos. So ang gusto natin is something na doable kagad and matatapos nyo kagad in 1 week, 2 weeks, and then i-share nyo na kagad sa group, no? Kahit pangit, okay lang yon kasi it means you were able to create something new sa skills na natutunan mo with the help of the group. And it's kumbaga, if you're going to compare yourself 1 week ago, ka na, nag-level up ka na. Kasi nagawa mo na to eh. Dati hindi mo na kayang gawin. Pero ngayon, hindi siya perfect, pero, di ba? So, yung focus talaga is project-based, application-based, no? And as much as possible, fail fast. Okay lang, we don't parang demonize, no, yung traditional learning. It's still okay, pero it's a good supplementary or complementary dun sa journey nyo, no? Okay. Maraming programs ang DEP. So I'll try to walk through lahat. Pero you can actually check this out for yourselves. Ito, punta kayo sa dataengineering.ph, yun yung website. And then click nyo yung programs. No? So, yung program, tama, ito yung mga program. So, the first one is we have a website. Yung website, marami na siyang laman. So, madalas, pag may mga nagdi-discuss yung mga tao, iniipon namin and then ilalagay namin dun sa site. And then if may mga guide, etc., usually nilalagay namin dun. So, usually yung mga common questions, makikita niyo lahat dun. So, you start there. Always start there. Next is yung mga projects and challenges. We're trying to create, kasi nga project-driven yung gusto namin. So, we're trying to create like a list of ano mga pwede nyong gawin, you can start with. Kasi madalas sa mga tao, stuck sila sa tawag dito yung parang tutorial hell, no? So parang feeling nila hindi nila kayang gawin, etc. So just, 'di ba? Just do it. Gawa na kayong project. Kuha kayo ng isa, try niyo i-replicate, and then later on try niyo gumawa ng, i-increase niyo yung challenge, no? So just do it and then tingnan niyo kung saan kayo dadalhin. Another program that we have, yan, andito si Kata, is the Data Masters. So Data Masters naman, malaki yung emphasis sa mga engineers, no? And may reason doon kasi usually mga engineers tahimik, ayaw makipag-usap, no? So we want to parang break that parang barrier. So etong Data Masters, it's really Toastmasters pero version namin. So yung madalas yung topics are related to to interviews, mga technical topics, projects na nagawa mo, or even just sharing yung resume mo. And then you get to practice. Tapos people can comment on how you did, no? So maganda siyang experience kasi it's better than lalaban ka sa, in actual work na and then makakarni ka, no? So at least dito makakarni ka pero friendly. So it's good. We also do surveys, no? So we do a lot of parang internal surveys to gain insights of ano na bang nangyayari sa community. We also launched a mentorship program before, pero I think we need to reset this. But the idea is marami kasing mga seniors sa group na ang raming pwedeng i-share. Um, so kailangan lang gawan ng platform, no? So let DEP be your platform to essentially expose yung nalalaman mo, give back, no? Another program that we have is the Puso Project. So this is being led by Sir Bong, so si Engramar. Yung goal naman nito is to create a sandbox environment for people. So it's very similar dito sa Project Challenges, except that this one, ano siya, collaborative siya. So there are also other programmers that are part of the group. Usually, para makapasok ka dito, dapat matapos mo muna yung basic Python training. Makikita mo siya dun sa website. So this is actually a website. Yung mga volunteers rin mismo yung gumawa niyan, no? So nakakatuwa, actual na gawa nila, yun yung nade-deploy into the website, no? So maraming mga ideas na napupunta diyan, and then they collaborate together. So dito parang medyo solo trip siya, and then ito talagang applied siya, no? And then ito yung pinakasikat na program is yung Data Camp Donates. Yung Data Camp Donates, actually si Data Camp, nilapitan nila kami I think last year. Parang sobrang natuwa sila sa ginagawa namin, in-offer nila yung Donates program. So yung Donates program, they give us licenses to give away essentially. So it's like a scholarship program. Yung licenses na yon, it's completely free, no? Kami yung bahala mag-filter kung sino yung pwedeng magkaroon ng license na yan. And it's 100% yung premium nila. I think yung cost nun is around $35 per month, parang ganun. So, basta around $400 per year. So mahal siya kasi I think aabot siya ng mga 15,000 or 20, I don't know. Basta mahal. Pero you will have access for 1 year, no? So what we do is essentially, actually we just give it away. You just need to sign up yung dun sa application form, and siguro yung tip ko lang to get approved is make sure na honest kayo and serious, kasi we have a lot of applicants na gino-joke time nila, no? Kung ano-anong kalokohan sinasagot. Obviously, 'di ba? Mukhang hindi mo gagamitin, 'di ba? So we have, I think, 5,000 licenses. I think right now nasa almost 3,000 pa lang. Yung isang goal ko is for us to get to 10,000 para tayong school na, no. Yun. So another one now, ito dine-develop pa lang yung idea. It's called Learn Data Philippines. It's also a website, but yung idea dito is we're trying to gather lahat ng open license books. Ang rami-raming open license books and no one is using it. Ang gaganda, no? So if you want to learn statistics, if you want to learn Python, if you want to learn how to do web development, ang rami, we just need to find them and then expose them. So ito yon, this is the effort. So just go there and then tingnan nyo. And then you can learn from the books kasi magaganda sila. Yan. So yan yung programs. Yeah, ito yung community. So we also do meetups. Tapos ito mostly chikahan lang to, no? Getting to know lang. Some statistics about the group. Yeah. Ang point ko lang dito is it's largely a mixed bag of members. Iba-ibang context, no? So you get to read, pag nag-share yung mga tao, you get to really learn a lot from each other. And then another way na we also scale is we partner up. So maraming partners kami. I think yung latest, well, di man latest, pero actually this is the second time na nag-talk ako for DICT. So through that, we get to expand yung exposure ng group, and hopefully we get to help more people. Yeah, ito some examples lang to ng mga post ng mga tao where they share real problems or real success, which parang yung point lang talaga is that it's really community driven. So makita nyo, siguro one na I'd like to highlight is itong isang nag-post dati. So ang ginawa niya was naghanap talaga siya ng mga tao from the community to refer sa company niya. So nakalima na daw siya. No, uh, so ano ibig sabihin nun? Nagkaroon ng trabaho yung mga tao through DEP, di ba? So I think it's fine. Okay, siguro one last thing na I'd like to talk about is yung career stages. So people have different contexts kung nasan sila sa career nila. May iba beginner, entry, experienced, leader, yung iba executive na. There's a lot of ways for you to give back. no? Just sharing yung journey nyo, sharing yung mga learnings nyo, sharing yung mga problems nyo. Um, and it all, you know, uh, uh, parang it all boils down into a whole community of parang helping each other. No. Oh, ito pala yun. So we call sarili imbento ko lang to no, community flywheel namin to. So you find someone in need na meron kang extra no, extra knowledge, hindi mo alam saan pwede ilagay, bigay mo sa kanila yon no. And you support them along the way. Yung another terminology for this is paid forward. And the idea is that syempre kung mag-isa ka lang, mahirap siya. But if we're a community, imagine you 35,000 members, tinutulungan ng isa't isa, ano yun? Scalable, di ba? Okay. Yan. So, actually, yun lang yung talk ko. So, yung call to action ko is ready, if ready ka to take the next step and if you feel inspired sa, topic na to, join us. You can visit tong link, or just join the group or visit the website tapos, decide for yourself. No? You can scan this code. We have a form. Yun. So, if passionate ka about tech and data, if you like working in a community, or if you like helping other people, then you have hopefully found your home. And that's it. Thank you. Stay kayo kasi maganda yung next na talk, which is kay Bea. Hindi lang maganda yung talk but because maganda rin kasi si Bea. Yes.
Wow
Ah,
naman, may
pero
bola pa.
intro ko na si Bea. Bea is one of our moderators. She's being really helpful in helping setting up the community, helping out, attending meetups, tsaka yung pag-develop ng mga programs, no? So she's also actually a rising leader sa data space. Yes. And marami siyang mga personal successes na she is going to share today, and I hope you guys get really inspired.
Ayan. Thank you so much, Sir Mike. So I'll share my screen, okay? Oops, sorry. Do you see it? And do you see it? Okay. All right, yeah. And so thank you so much, Sir Mike, no, for the talk. So really see on the DEP side how much initiatives there are for all of us, and also how it ties up to the goal of really improving the data literacy. So on my side, what I will cover naman is really more on how do we wanna my experience in terms of how I grew my career in data. So and then I'm gonna share more about like my journey from being starting as an analyst, and then eventually I handled a team, and then now I'm doing more of a consultancy role. Okay, so quick intro just about me. Just so at least you have background is, so I have been working in the analytics space ever since I started, and then mostly on the financial services side, so more of banking and then asset management. And then as I mentioned, I am doing consultancy. Sometimes I also do corporate training also, Power BI, SQL, and then I also love mentoring and teaching other people. That's why I engage in trainings. And then on top of that, I also like mentoring. So DEP is one avenue, women in big data is another one. And then I also have a math background. And just tidbit is I have life outside, so I also like outdoor activities. So let me start with this one, and I am hoping you could answer the question, no? So can you recognize this picture? Are you still familiar with this picture? Anyone? If you could type in the chat box, although I'm not sure if I could see it. Are you familiar with this? What do you call this? Anyone? Yes, so I think lalabas din yung age, no? But yeah, so
Sinasabi ko
childhood
na nga ba eh.
memory.
Age ang pag-uusapan natin eh.
Correct. So so if you look at this, it's called window cards. So for those who are not familiar, no, kasi during when I was young, so window cards, you see those mini holes na you have to poke. So bubutasin nyo siya, and then you have to put it on top of a bond paper, and then i-answer nyo. So 31 minus 17, 14. Yon. So why am I showing this? So Because how I'll go about my journey is I will go through it in phases. So of course I need to explain to you where I started. So my phase 0 is my pre-work. So that's called growing up in a math world. So the reason why I show that is because when I was young, at as early as like 4 or 5, my parents would already give me window cards and something like this, which is called an MSA book. So imagine, no? So some people they're given toys. I also have toys, but then they would also give me math books, because they are professors. So during the times na they would teach, they would give me these so that I could keep myself quiet and busy myself. So you would see, right, that I really come from a math background, and I think there's no question why I eventually went to the analytics space. So I think some of the anecdotes that my parents would share is even at a young age, I would sinisingil ko na sila. Like, let's say they didn't give me allowance for 4 days. So I would compute, okay, you didn't give me, let's say, this amount, 4 times this amount. And then sisingal ko na sila. So at that time, they would already, recognize that I have that affinity with with math. I think coming from, of course, seeing them as professors. And then eventually, I did pursue a career in, or a degree in applied mathematics. Okay, so I think why I share that also is because I'm trying to show also the building block. So for me, before starting working, I already have that mathematics background for seeing my parents. But at the same time, because they are teachers, then it also means that they inculcated with me that inclination to really keep on learning, and as well as being persistent, because math, it's not an easy subject. So for me to finish my degree means I need to have been persistent with solving all those problems. Okay, so that's my phase 0 really. So let's go phase 1, which is how I started out, because I wanna show to you the growth or the trajectory. So how did I start out? So I'll share to you my 2 experiences, and then some of the insights that I got, which hopefully you'd learn from as well. So I'll explain phase 1.1. It's be a sponge. So I started my career in banking, as I mentioned, no. So my role was called Credit Risk Portfolio Analytics Officer. So it's a long title, but and then that's my picture. So I worked in Maybank before, and that's me, medyo parang bagong gising pa. But then, what did you have to do when you need to do credit risk? So for those who are not familiar with banking, so when you apply for a loan, syempre, how do they determine if they will give you money? So there are 2 sides of it. So one is qualitative. So they will assess you, background check and all. But there's also the quantitative side. So for example, they look into your marital status. Are you likely to pay? Yes, credit score, correct. So that's what I had to do, but more on the quantitative side. So I was doing statistical modeling. And then at the same time, I also had to come up with dashboards. So that's in line with, what the role entails, right? Which is credit risk portfolio officer. But then I also had to do other things. And the reality is, for me, I also had to collect the data myself. So I had to do modeling. But the thing is, there's not much data. So that means I also had to do programming so that I get the data that I need to eventually come up with my scorecards. So that's also my first touch with data, right? So realizing as a user that this is what's needed for me to be able to come up with a scorecard. I need to have data, and so it has to be available. So that's the one that I would say is my first touch with data. And then I also had to work with developing systems to make sure we get that data eventually. So why I mentioned that it's a BS sponge is because one of the important things that I learned, especially from my boss, is when you're new to the industry, you have to be a sponge. So you have this much info. I stay right before I move to the next one. So I will also explain why I titled it Trial by Fire. But then 2 years after, right? So that's when I moved to an asset management firm. So it's called Risk Analytics Officer. So same title but a different industry, I would say. So I also had to look at these. Ayan, sorry nagbe-break. Okay. So, yan. So in this one, right, I also had to look into numbers. So not really far. And the reality was when I came in, there was only one person in the team and he wanted to leave already. So that's why they were looking for another person. And then there's manual and ad hoc reporting. And then everybody goes to him. And then everything is urgent. There were, because of that, because it's manual, then there's inaccuracies with the data that he would report, for example. And on top of those challenges within the team, there are also strategic plans to expand the unit. So that was the reality when I came in. So of course, when they hired me, that means that's the expectation that I have to help solve those problems. So one example is we were trying to onboard the first external client of the team. So para siyang they were converting it into a revenue generating unit. And then I was new in the field. So what I had to do was, oops, let me switch here, right? So what I had to do was to come up with a consolidated report for that client. Para siyang consolidated amount of money that he's handling. And then I have to analyze it for him. So sometimes I would have to spend weekends just to be able to generate those reports. And then because he knows his portfolio very well, portfolio meaning that's like the list of money and where it is, from an asset management standpoint. So there were instances when I have to come up with lots of analysis. Only when I would report, he would pin down that there's an error, like this one tiny detail that, that he would have. And I feel like, you prepare everything and then in the end, there's just this tiny detail where everything seems to crumble because you missed an information. So I think that's my experience really. That's why I mentioned it trial by fire because we had to deal with external clients. At the same time, we also had to fix the issues internally of showing inaccurate data, and also being able to build what the team is about, really. So it's a lot of being thrown in there and being able to and having to face external clients and or also internal clients to cater to. So to me, the term trial by fire, it might sound scary, it is, but at the same time, it also allows you to learn. So for me, when I did my first 4 years, I got to get to know more the business domain. So I understand not just on the technical side, but on the business side, what investments is, what banking is, what do you do when you do the investments. So I think for data engineers or for technical, I think for me, one important thing is really having that business domain because that allows you to communicate. And at the same time, for me, it's the importance of data, similar to the previous one that I mentioned, plus having high quality and accurate outputs. Consistency when it comes to these would be what I learned for this phase one of my career. So I hope you're able to follow. If there's issues with my internet, hopefully it's okay already. But yeah, I think that's what I would say for my phase one, right? So now let's go to my phase two, which is called the shift. So this is my shift towards a more senior role eventually. So how did it go? Okay, so it's loading. Sorry, some internet issues here. Let me just reload. Ayan. Sorry for the commercial. Okay, so now let's go to my phase two, which is me transitioning towards a more senior role. And why did I title it Why Passion and Your Boss Are Important? Because I worked for 2 years in the asset management firm, no? And then one day during the pandemic, he just messaged me randomly. Do you have time to talk tomorrow? Of course, I didn't know what to say, right? Because I thought, okay, did I do something wrong and all? But the reason why he reached out to me was because he wanted to ask me, do I want to head the data team and set it up? So I didn't expect that question, right? But that was the reason why he actually asked me, do you have time to talk about it? And two of the reasons why he wanted me to do that would be, one is because of my contribution as risk analytics. But at the same time, when I was new in the firm, he asked me to attend a meeting. It's like parang a software where he would discuss about programming and being able to automate things. And I kept on asking questions during that meeting, and I was new. Sometimes I already extended the meeting just because of my question. So that's when he recognized that I'm really passionate or interested in the field. That's why for me, being having that passion, but at the same time putting that high quality when it comes to your work helps you get recognized. So it will always have something to for you as an effect. So to me, that's him recognizing that maybe I could be assigned to a bigger role, right? So that's a picture of me as part of my one of my talks in the firm. Okay, so when he reached out to me, actually, I didn't really accept it right away. I'm like, okay, can you give me the weekend? Because me coming from a math background, no, I've always been this kind of organized where I need to be able to see what's next like a step by step, no, so that came naturally for me as a math person. So when he came in and is like, okay, do you want to do this, and I don't even know what it entails, I think that's where the me being scared came in. And he came to me, I was 25 in my career. So at that time I would also I would say I would categorize myself being in what you call quarter life crisis. So if anyone's 25 here, so me, I also underwent that because I've always wanted to do data. But the thing is, if you look at my phase one, right? So I have started really on the risk analytics space. I had data, right? Being able to see the impact of it. But the thing is, I didn't also have the data engineering side and the data science side of things. So I think at that time, that's when I started asking, did I really make the right decision of staying or working for 4 years in the risk analytics space? So I would like ask, okay, I feel like I wasted my time and all. So I think those kinds of questions, they also popped up in my head when I was trying to evaluate whether I really wanted to be handling a managerial role at early stage of my career. So I would, think of these like I'm not sure what to do with my life, or sometimes I'm frustrated because I didn't do data science as much. So I had to go through this. But what helped me eventually is here. So what helped me eventually is really because I had to reach out to people within my network. And having that network, whether it's friends, family, or community orgs like DEP, would be very valuable because they will give you their insights that you might know right away. And they will be part of your journey because they will influence what your decision will be. So for me, somebody told me, come on, not everybody gets the chance to be offered that position. Or another person is like, Bea, when you take a leadership role, your time will revolve around managing people. So that means I would lose the time, no, to be able to work more on the technical side. Somebody told me, just jump in or go for it. That's the next step that makes sense for you. Or somebody also asked me, what are you scared of? So I had also people within my network who are very, very valuable, and also were happy to network, to mentor me along the way. So that's why you would see that after 3 days or after that weekend, I eventually said yes to my boss. Okay, let's do it. I'll jump right in, even if I don't know what it entails for me. So that's where my phase three would come in, which is called stepping into the leadership role. And at that time, I was 25. So, what did it entail being a head of data and analytics in an asset management firm? So, it entailed actually exerting as much more than what 100% means in terms of effort. So when I transitioned, I was risk analytics, right? And then they asked me to expand. So they didn't drop my risk analytics. I had to do data and risk analytics. So those are two different things. Data is more engineering, risk analytics is more of the chart that I just showed. So it also meant that I had multiple hats. I would be the engineer, be the analyst self. So that means also able to move into the role. And for leadership role, hello. Hopefully it's okay.
Bea, I'll stop
Ayan.
your video muna.
Sure.
Para better yung...
Ayan. Is it better?
Yep.
Okay, cool. There. So for me, when it comes to taking on a leadership role, and if you're also evaluating that, no, so it covers different areas. So there's the strategic side. You will be asked to develop a roadmap. Like, how are you gonna build a team? What would be your vision, mission? What would be the timeline? So that's the strategic side of it. But at the same time, you build the strategy, but you also have to execute it. So it means that you have to be the one to hire people, you have to implement the plan that you created yourself. And at the same time, you have to study the current so that you could move to the future estate that you want. On the learning side, because it was new to me, then I also had to listen to lots of videos on the side, like what's data warehouse, what is data engineering, what is Power BI, SQL. So I also had to do that myself while doing the other side of things. And also, as mentioned by one of my friends, it would also involve people side. So it means you're invited into management meetings, you have to talk to the co-heads that you will work with. You have to mentor the people who are under you. So it means it's a grand role, which is a mix of being able to do management, but at the same time on the technical side. So for you who are curious or evaluating that side, those are some of the things that I would say you would expect handling or managing a team. Okay, and to add to that, right? So I'll just mention three challenges that I encountered along the way. There are many, but I will just highlight three. So the first one is because you're the head of data, right? So you don't have a technical mentor. You're expected to be the most technical. And how do you navigate that? So for me, that was a challenge because I need to ask a question, but I don't have somebody to ask. So for me, the solution was really getting or proposing to get somebody external who would be a consultant. And you have to be resourceful. You have to find mentorship outside because you have to admit that if you're the expected to be the most technical, then you have to find the people who will train you outside. So that's I think one challenge that I have that people evaluating into going into management role would potentially experience. Secondly is getting buy-in and resources for people inside and senior management. So I think one challenge that I've had here is really I could keep telling them no, like data is valuable, data is an asset, but the one experience that I've had is really if they don't see it, it's going to be hard for them to support you. They have to see it. You have to show them through an output that before they may be doing things manually, but after having a data team or having data processes in place, it now just takes them 5 minutes versus 2 days, for example. So you have to show them. And that means a lot of hard work of showing them and also juggling multiple tasks because I was handling a small team at that time. And I think the third challenge, which I also mentioned in the previous slide, is you have to manage people. And when we talk about managing people, it would be four sides. You have to lead your subordinates, the people who are reporting to you. You have to lead your boss. You have to show them the value of what you are working on. And then you have to lead your peers, the people who are similar in a similar position, but you are expected to help. And then of course you have to lead yourself. So meaning even if you don't have the technical mentor, you have to stay strong and be resourceful rather than just sit down and complain. So that's, I think, the challenge number 3, which is still broad because that involves people, and different people means different ways of being able to manage them and communicate with them. And for me, right, so being ahead of data, it wasn't easy, but ultimately, for me, what I realized is I just had to jump right in. So it means that you don't really get a chance to be 100% prepared for being a leader. So, but you have to remain open and you have to be ready to not complain, but to provide solutions to the challenges that you would be facing. Secondly is if otherwise you decide, okay, management, people management is not for me, then I think it's good to think that there's no time wasted. So whether it's a good experience, a bad experience to you, you always just have to charge it to experience that. If you liked it, then great. If it's not, then at least you know that it's not good for you or you don't like it. And I think the last for the phase 3 is really to not give up easily because these types of challenges, having sleepless nights, those are building blocks, I would say, for you to become the greater or like the better version of yourself because good things always take time. So for me, so this is the third, right? I have the last phase. But for me, being ahead of data, I learned about strategy and leadership. I learned about how to negotiate. But at the same time, having to do lots of technical work means I also had to develop the technical expertise in data. So now my last phase, which of course will not be the last, is really how I grew into a consultant eventually. So yeah, so me being a consultant from having handled a data team, right? So being a consultant means I'm not just to not just working to one company. Currently, I could handle at least one client from different industries. I could also do corporate trainings for people who want to do SQL or programming or data. And at the same time, I get to also have time to mentor or be involved, such as in Data Engineering Pilipinas. So as I mentioned, so this allows me to meet more people. Training other people means I get to have exposure in different industries and I have flexibility with my time. So for people who might be thinking about being a consultant, so this would be the pro, but not everything is perfect, of course. You don't get to uh, have the perfect, clients. You have to deal with them also depending on their nature. But to me, this is where my journey right now, from being an analyst to eventually moving towards a consultancy role. So these are some of the pictures, which was the background of Sir Mike. Um, and then me on the some of the other engagements that I did recently. Yeah, so just to cap it off, no? So for me, I think I have 5 key takeaways. So I mentioned, right, so nobody gets successful without hard work. So you've seen in my phases, it's not so easy. I think people, for me, especially within my network, they tell me that I have things figured out. Really, not that's not true. It had to do with a lot of hard work that I had to do that people didn't see. And you have to stay consistently excellent. Second is you have to believe that you have what it takes. So your journey might not be the same as mine. Some are career shifters, some would be more on, they're already in the data field. So if you're faced with challenge and questioning yourself, so you have to think that you have what it takes and don't be scared to try it out. If you make a mistake, then it's okay, right? So you move on and then you decide the next step for you. The third for me is I prioritized also putting in my slides building blocks because for me, what's important is you have your right foundation so that you could be put anywhere and you will thrive. Fourth for me is you want to keep on learning, you want to have that growth mindset so that for any challenge that will be thrown to you, you will also be prepared and have a growth mindset. And for me, the last is you've also seen in my journey how relationships are important. The people that I would ask for advice, my boss, because they can take you to places. Network is very, very important. They always say, right, network is your net worth as well. So you have to choose also the people that you will, surround with, and you have to value them. As much as they help you, you also have to help them. So I think those are my 5 key takeaways from being an analyst to moving towards a head of data role, and then now being a consultant. And again, my journey doesn't end here because I'm sure I will still have a lot of challenges along the way. But my message also is, even if you don't have things figured out, I think that's okay. All of us, we all go through the same thing. So that's my presentation. So just let me know if you have questions. Thank you so much for listening. Sorry for the internet issues. There. So let me know if you have questions.
Mukhang magsasalihan na lahat sa depth, lahat ng mga nandito. Oh, I think lahat naman is di ba? Part ng depth. Any questions from anyone for Mike and Bea? Wala, napaka-clear, no? Yan. And now, how is difficult to transition to leadership role?
Yeah, so LA. Hi. So thanks for that question, no. So yeah, it's because I come from a technical background, no. So as I described, being a leader means managing people plus also doing the technical side. So I think what I would go back to is you have to exert more than what you can, like really like divide yourself 75% technical, 75% being a leader, because when you talk about leadership, you have people, and they could be various types of people that you have to deal with. They could be the demanding type, they could be the understanding type. So you have to be strong when it comes to that side of things, and being persistent with what you think will be helpful, not just for you, but for the company. So and then on the flip side, right? So while I would attend those meetings, I also had to listen to videos of how to do data warehousing, what's Synapse, what's Azure, etc. So it's hard, yes. You would have to spend time, but I think for me the message is, it will eventually be worth it as long as you keep on being persistent with it.
Okay. Thanks, Bea. There was a similar question last week, and I think Mike posted that already in the Facebook group. So if you want also to weigh in on that and read through the answers. Okay. Actually it's 7 o'clock now. We'll actually switch to the AWS users group naman na Zoom. Okay. But Mike, copy na lang yung mga questions, and then post sa Facebook group natin ng depth.
Yes.
Okay. And then I'll send the recording again to Kata, and then she'll post it in your YouTube channel. Oh, may nakakamiss daw kay Bea. We'll miss you daw.
Mark, hi.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Okay.
he was my previous intern.
Oh, i-hire mo na. All right. I think that's it. Thank you very much, Mike and Bea, Kata, and the entire Data Engineering Pilipinas community. I think as Kata mentioned, this is our last only for the National ICT Month, pero tuloy-tuloy pa rin naman yung meetups ng Data Engineering Pilipinas. Yes, the recording will be shared sa YouTube channel ng DEP. All right, with that, thank you everyone for joining us. It's July na nga pala. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.